This real-side experience was a personal self-one, as life and the real guides always will show us what we need to know now, what we need to be aware of, and if we're paying attention. Hints as to what then we need to adjust and realign with our real intent of recognizing the ears, if we are to continue on with the journey to do so. The real guides are ingenious at demonstrating what it is they wish to convey, from elaborate setups which would put any blockbuster movie to shame, to taking us all over creation for the scenes and situations that provide the insights we need to know now. The real guides also set up what I may call training areas. I have had many experiences of this nature, where it's as though the guides have constructed areas in creation which literally are like trials and tests, designed that we can practice certain abilities, or that impress upon us that which we need be currently aware of. This would be one such experience, and I would find myself in a kind of a complex and very vast, multi-layered house. I would say it was multi-dimensional, and it served the purpose of allowing navigation throughout the dimensional parts of itself, according to the decisions made moment by moment, almost like a microcosm of creation contained in a multi-dimensional house. For the decisions, choices, focus and intent in creation dictates how we position ourselves within it, through cause and effect, and then the ultimate objective is, of course, to position ourselves beyond its restricted confines and with the ears. This particular training construction was specifically designed to demonstrate how thought, and in particular attitudes, are just as instrumental in our cause and effect positioning with life as any other agreement or attachment idea. The personal self does have its decided upon created attitudes, and aligning the 5 bodies with the focus on the recognizing of the ears must include getting a handle on this part of the created consciousness also. The multi-dimensional house was full of people, but people that stood in different dimensional parts of it, so all were not present at the same time, even though they were but vibrational dimensions apart. Where they were placed was according to their focus, sincerity, and purity. The more they were in alignment with the qualities that best reference the ears, and thus aligned with this reality, the nicer the dimensional area of the house they resided in. Much like the creational simulator, how, as we position ourselves continuously closer to the true reality, from the astral to the etheric, so then are these areas more resplendent in their beauty and the expression of being ever more pure, and an escalating sense of bliss and true love experienced for those that reside within them be known, that cannot be appreciated from the perspective of the personal created consciousness. As I said, it was a training, demonstrational, practice building, where you could play with attitudes specifically and view the results. Perhaps at this moment I was allowing a few created attitudes to be entertained and clung to on the physical. Hence the personal, real side self-experience presented here, and a firm reminder of how these attitudes, as whimsical and fleeting and inconsequential they may seem to the personal self, are anything but, and can restrict us in creation if we continue to embrace them. For a single idea can have us returning for 1,000 lifetimes if we do not remain indifferent to them and let them be. Just let all these thoughts and ideas float around us like little bubbles. For as long as we have a personal self, it will have these thoughts, but the trick is to not let the bubbles stick to us, just to walk through them and be indifferent to their presence if they do not make sense with the whole of life. And so my real awareness was effectively deciding to entertain the full spectrum of attitudes, from a scale of a very abrasive and dark through the full range of attitude nuances to having none at all, with my personal self along for the ride, and simply seeing the result that each type of attitude along the attitude scale resulted in for its consideration. And yes, the darker and more embittered, emotionally enhanced attitudes activated the corresponding positioning in the house, mirrored equally, as everything always equals itself. That which we decide, focus on, the nature of our idea creations, thoughts, etc., align us with the cause and effect experience and positions in creation that reflect the overall nature of the ideas, agreements we decide upon. And so, with the attitudes that were the most distorted, I would find myself in a dimensional version of the house that was equally as dark and foreboding, thick fog pervading the air, squelchy slime flowing over everything, and a foul stench assailing the nostrils, and in accordance with such a version of the house were the individuals you'd most expect to find there, twisted, ill-intended characters, the kind of folks you would find in the lower astral, that this dimensional version of the house best resembled. Entities, reptilians, and the like. And as the various attitudes were entertained along the scale, so did the house continue to change from a swampy, lower astral-like design to a delightful splendour of gleaming white purity and everything in between, with the corresponding purity or lack of such with the individuals featuring in each version of the house. The dimensional version of the house in its purest form could not be experienced if anything attitude-wise was entertained, indicating quite demonstrably that to be in alignment with and stand in these purer spots in creation, such as the etheric, and a step beyond that into the real universes, that all that is of the created self and its construction, its attitudes, convictions, assumptions and considerations must be released. So all in all, a very good reminder of the effects of attitudes, and that we should be cautious not to assume that we can entertain these emotionally charged ideas, and that clinging to them, incorporating them into ourselves, will not have cause and effect consequences, because they certainly will. The effects of what we decide and choose to activate through the personal self all shows up eventually, and we may find ourselves even in the company of reptilians and entities in the lower astral, if we choose along the lines of distortion that make the least sense with the whole of life. Rebazar once said in one of Paul's books how people were their own problem in regards to their personal selves. The journey to standing real with the guides and the ears in recognition of the beings of light we already are, this all-alive awareness is a huge journey. This cannot be understated. The process of becoming more aware, of seeing, and continually being more than just the created personal self, is an endless series of steps. If we are only aware of a very limited, one-dimensional, literal, five senses view that the controllers unceasingly ensure we are resigned to, if we allow and agree that this is so, then our decisions, choices, will be based on these very limited areas in creation. We effectively align ourselves with the physical, astral areas only, and can never see or be beyond the densest aspects of our personal created selves. To be aware of more then allows for greater potentiality of positioning with life, as we have more to consider. Were we only to ever focus and consider the very routine, boring, and habitual situations of restriction we find ourselves in on the physical, the created ideas that the controllers provide if we agree to it, which then becomes our experience, then we cannot move beyond the very bottom rung of creation. For where we place our focus and attention is akin to a decision to remaining in whatever restriction in creation we have placed this focus. Becoming more aware then gives us more options. We can consider, focus, and decide on more than what we have resigned ourselves to for so many lifetimes, taking the risk to step more so into the unknown. For we always are the deciders of our experience, and ultimately, as we become aware of the true reality, the real universes of real freedom beyond the created personal selves and the simulators they are in, we have the option now to place our focus and intent there with the ease, and where our focus is placed becomes our reality, as the recognition of the ease eventually reveals itself to us as we continually demonstrate our real intent and sincerity to know it, as we endeavour to remain indifferent to the personal self and creation realistically,